Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. My name is Lucas, and I have Eric here as always.
Hey guys.
And it's kind of strange for me to say this, but happy election day. It's been, wow, a very long time since we started this channel. We can't believe it's already election day. This is the first of our two final predictions that we're going to be uploading today. We're doing the Senate right now, and we'll be doing the our final presidential election later today. Or as I like to say, Merry Christmas. This is the political Christmas completely. All
Yes.
right, anyway, today we'll look at our predictions and we'll see how close we get. And with that being said, let's get right into it. All right, as always, let's start off with our safe Democratic states. We have Oregon here. We don't really think there's going to be much trouble holding that seat, as well as New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Virginia, Mark Warner's here, and Dick Durbin in Illinois, as well as Ben Lujan, who is running for the open seat in New Mexico. And honestly, a lot of these safe Democratic states could have been competitive, but the Republicans did not field good candidates. For example, New Hampshire, they could not field a good candidate to go against Gene Shaheen, so we are going to put that one as safe. Heading now into our safe Republican states, there's really actually a lot of them. So let's see. That does seem to be it, I believe. Yes, that is it. All right. Yep. Those are all the safe Republican states. We're not really going to discuss them because they're pretty much self-explanatory there. But let's now dig into the likely Republican states, starting with the state of Alabama, where Doug Jones is currently running for re-election. He is the Democrat here, and I know that sounds kind of strange because Alabama is super, super conservative, solid red, but you got to remember that he ran against Roy Moore, who had a bunch of scandals against him in 2017, a terrible candidate, and Doug Jones still only won by around 2 points, which is really not that good. Even though Alabama's deep red, you should be winning more in a larger margin than just 2 or so points against that terrible of candidate. That kind of shows how deep red Alabama is. This year, Republicans are running Tommy Tuberville. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Someone corrected me in the comments last time. Tommy Tuberville. He is, I think, a pretty decent candidate. He's, doesn't have any political experience, but he doesn't have any political baggage against him. So we do expect that to go in a likely margin. Just for reference, our safe is 15 points of margin or higher. Our likely is 5 to 15 points or higher. Our lean is 1 to 5 point margin, and our tilt is less than 1% of a victory. All right, that is our first likely state. Our second likely state is here in Mississippi, which is where you have Sidney Clyde Smith versus Mike Espy, which is a repeat of an election, I believe it was a couple of years ago. I think it was a special election where Mike Espy came a little bit close. But we think this is also going to go between 5 and 15 points. All right. Any other likely states? Eric, why don't you discuss Arizona first? That's the big major one. And actually, you can do Colorado at the same time.
Yeah, so both of these states, we are expecting both of these states to flip to the Democrats. These are two pickups that are basically essential for the Democrats if they want to take back the Senate from the Republicans. So let's talk about Arizona. We got Mark Kelly, a Democrat astronaut, Democratic candidate, and we got Martha McSally, pretty unpopular Republican incumbent, kind of. She was kind of like appointed by Governor Ducey, which was a very unpopular choice, and she was basically hated on by a lot of people of Arizona. And in the polls, Mark Kelly is up by a very healthy margin. A+ pollster puts him up by approximately 7 points. 6 and 7 points. So he has a very good chance of flipping this, and there was also a debate that really didn't seem to help Martha McSally whatsoever. It kind of just reinforced the fact of which candidate is more favorable. Now going to Colorado, we got John Hickenlooper challenging Cory Gardner, a staunch Trump supporter who was elected during the 2014 red wave. And we do think that Hickenlooper is going to take back this seat because, one, he ran for president and he really gained popularity and recognition. And two, being a staunch Trump supporter right now is not, it doesn't really put you in the best position because a lot of Democrats specifically think that Donald Trump has not been the best for the country, and they really do not want to elect anyone who is associated with that type of figure.
Yeah, and to add to that final point there, it's considering that Colorado in the past few years has moved a lot to the left. Colorado's pretty blue now. I don't want to say it's safe blue, but it's getting there. Like in our presidential election, we have it as a likely. Colorado is a pretty Democratic state. So that's why we do think that this one is going to be a flip here. All right. Now heading to other likely Democratic states, I'll start here with Michigan, which is where you have Gary Peters versus John James. We were going to put it as lean, but we started thinking about it. We think it's going to be around a 6-point victory. And the reason for that is because John James is pretty well known. That is true because he did run in 2018 against Debbie Stabenow. He actually came, I don't want to say close, but he came closer than expected. He has a lot of name recognition within Republicans. So we do think that he might be able to perform a little bit well, I believe. Let's check. Michigan, although the polling data does show a Peters leading by a lot more. And with that in mind, we do think that this one is going to be slightly above 5 points when we take into all the data. Because again, polling is not our main source of our predictions, but it does play a role in that, and we are going to put this one as likely. And the same thing we're going to be said for Tina Smith in Minnesota. We started thinking about this as well. We think that it's going to go to her in less than 15 points, but she should have no problem keeping her seat here. It's going to be more than Gary Peters' win in Michigan. I think that's definitely for sure.
And one more thing to keep in mind is that both of these candidates are incumbents. So, people in both of these states have seen what they've done, and whether that's for the good or for the bad, they now know, this candidate's record. So that will be a better indicator, which is why there's such thing called incumbency advantage.
That's definitely true. All right. Let's head now into more likely Republican states, starting off with Kentucky. Now, we have been back and forth on this one as well. Should we move this one to safe? We're going to keep this one as likely. It's going to be around 14.5 points. Although Mitch McConnell is extremely unpopular, this is Kentucky. Even though Amy McGrath is a moderate, even though she did defeat the progressive Charles Booker, she doesn't have much of a chance. The people of Kentucky are not going to elect a Democrat. I don't see that happening anytime soon. So we are going to put this one as likely Republican. All right. Heading now to Texas now. You have MJ Hagar. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that. Please correct me in the comments. But she is up against John Cornyn, who is definitely not as well known as Ted Cruz was in 2018. MJ Hagar is really not that great of a candidate. She hasn't served any past. She doesn't have past political experience. For example, Beto he was in the House of Representatives. Although MJ Hagar ran for the House of Representatives, but she did not get elected. So we do not think that Hagar really has a realistic shot against John Cornyn. Although polling has been a little bit on the interesting side here in Texas. Cornyn's 13 for single digits, but we are going to go with likely for this one. I think I do think that Joe Biden will outperform MJ Hagar here. I think that I'm pretty sure that is what's going to happen here. Now, Alaska is between Al Gross and Sullivan. Now, Al Gross is an independent, but I think that he has declared that he is going to caucus Democrat. Should he get elected, which his chances right now are slim, but the polling has showed interesting data. They've showed Sullivan only up 3. Gross was up 1. So this was definitely really interesting to see. We are kind of iffy on whether we're going to put this one as exactly likely or lean, but I think as of now, we are going to put this one as likely. We'll see if this is right. I hope either tonight or tomorrow. So,
in general,
all right, and
in general, Alaska is a pretty conservative state.
So yeah, that is good to add.
Pretty unlikely that Al Gross would take this back.
I agree. Let's head now into our lean states because I think that is it for the likelies. Let's first start with the state of South Carolina, which, Eric, you can go ahead and explain.
Yeah, so South Carolina right now is really slowing up. We made a whole video on that if you want to, go into the really deep specifics as to why and the track record of each of the candidates. Polls have been very interesting, as you see. Data for progress, Graham +3. Once again, this is South Carolina. This isn't supposed to be contested in general. D- pollster I'm going to avoid. But another B- pollster puts it at even. So it's been quite back and forth. But due to the fact that South Carolina, along with Alaska, has a pretty conservative foundation, it's going to be very hard for the Democrat Jamie Harrison to maximize voter turnout. That's exactly what he has to do, maximize the margins and the turnout. But in such a conservative state in South Carolina, it's very unlikely that it will flip from red to blue, which is why South Carolina, I think, it's reasonable to put South Carolina lean just
Yeah.
because the race is tightening up.
Right. What Jamie Harrison needs to do to win, he needs to drive up black turnout. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do it enough to win this back. And I do want to point out that I think Lindsey Graham did get a slight bump in the polls following the Amy Coney Barrett hearings. I think he said a lot of statements there that might have attracted more conservative voters to him. All right, now heading to Kansas. Kansas is definitely an interesting one. Again, Kansas is also a deep red state, but not as deep red as some of the other ones like Wyoming or, Alaska, but it's still pretty deep red. Barbara Boyer is a pretty good candidate. She was a former Republican. She switched to the Democrats. That's what you want in Kansas. You want like a moderate Democrat. We saw Laura Kelly, an upset defeat Chris Kobach in 2018. And speaking of Chris Kobach, the Republicans have definitely avoided a little scare here because Chris Kobach is a pretty bad candidate. But good for the Republicans is that he lost the primary and Roger Marshall, who was instead a representative, won this primary instead. Now, regarding this race, though, we think that it is going to be a win for Roger Marshall here, but it's not going to be as wide of a margin as we might have first expected here. With the polling data, we see Marshall up 6, Marshall up 4 for even Boyer +1, but I think GBAO is a Democratic internal. 4, 2, 4, and quite frankly, it looks like the polling has been kind of all over the place. Which is kind of interesting here. But I do think that it's going to be a victory of under 5 points, maybe 4.5, somewhere around there. What do you think on that, Eric?
Yeah, and once again, same with South Carolina and Alaska. For the most part, this has a pretty conservative foundation, and it's going to be pretty difficult to attract some of those undecided or new people who could vote, for example, to switch to the Democratic Party, because there are a lot of conservative influences, I should say, in the state of Kansas, and for the most part, in the middle of the country as well. So it would be more beneficial if for Barbara Boyer if Chris Kobach won, because he's a lot more unfavorable, just like what we had in Alabama in 2018. But that's not the case this time, and although the polls have been showing sort of promising results, more promising results than we would have expected, it's still going to be quite a challenge, and a 4 to 5 point margin, maybe even 5 points, right around there, is something reasonable.
I agree completely. All right, let's head now into the other lean states. Another lean state we're gonna have is Montana, which has, we had it at tilt when we first started this channel, but it's not really looking too good for Steve Bullock, which I guess we were kind of expecting because Montana is a deep, deep red state. And it's unlikely that they're going to elect a Democrat, even though he's super popular. He's the current governor right now. I don't think Steve Bullock can pull off a win here. According to the polling data, we had recent polls showing Bullock up, but it seems that the rest of the polls all showed Daines up, or at least most of them. And we really haven't gotten that much data from Montana, which is a little bit saddening because this was supposed to be a really competitive race, but we really don't know too much. So we are going to put this one as a lean from what we do have and what we can analyze about the state of Montana itself. Another lean state, which is actually lean Democratic, is Maine. We have Susan Collins here, who is considered to be Actually, she is the most unpopular senator in the United States Senate right now. And that's because the people may think that she has been maybe a bit too partisan. For example, she voted for Brett Kavanaugh to be confirmed, and she voted against impeachment of President Trump, which the people of Maine, they like their, independent, very centrist candidates or senators. For example, Angus King, he's very, very centrist. On the other hand, I was going to say Barbara Boyer, but Susan Collins is not really seen as that anymore. And Sarah Gideon is a really good candidate. She is the Speaker of the House of Representatives in Maine, which is a lot of good political experience. She has a pretty good amount of name recognition. So we are going to put this one as lean Democratic. Polling backs that up as well. If I recall correctly, I think it's up around 8, 4, 2, 2, 1. Oh, well, they're C minus, not too great. Emerson and Survey USA has been showing a closer race, but I do expect it to go between 1 and 5 points. All right. Let's head now to the state of North Carolina with Cal Cunningham and Tom Tillis. Tom Tillis is not too popular. He also got elected in the red wave year, which definitely helped him to get elected. Now, the polling data is again showing Cal Cunningham up, and a lot of Republicans were hoping at least for that sexting scandal to actually have an impact on the election, but it didn't. And at first, it did seem to actually help Kyle Cunningham, but it's really not looking good for Tom Tillis at all. There's only a couple of polls that are kind of iffy showing Tillis up, but the rest does seem to have Cunningham up. Yeah. Even Rasmussen, which is a right bias pollster, does have it tied. So we are going to be putting this one as lean. I think North Carolina might be the tipping state, though, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's head now to the state of Iowa. Eric, why don't you discuss this one?
So this is one of the states that, kind of determines if the Democrats are going to have an outright majority. Iowa has been very close recently. In the preceding months, Joni Ernst, the Republican incumbent, had a pretty good lead. But closer and closer to the election, Teresa Greenfield, the Democratic challenger, has been ahead in the polls and has come across as a bit more favorable than Joni Ernst. For example, I was watching an interesting video. It was the Senate debate between Joni Ernst and Teresa Greenfield, and Joni Ernst could not name the price of corn, while Teresa Greenfield successfully named the price of whatever cash crop was asked in Iowa. And for a state like Iowa, it is important to know the daily change in price or the price of your cash crops, and that was a bit that put Joni Ernst at a bit of a disadvantage, and it really Teresa Greenfield really seemed favorable in that debate. And polling has literally been back and forth. Some A+ pollsters have put Greenfield up by 6. Others have put Ernst up by 4. So it's really been back and forth. But based on just prior events, I think Teresa Greenfield will have the slightest edge. And this could be subject to change. This is one of the states where, it could literally go either way. But right now, I think it's going to be a tilt Democratic state. But, maybe it'll be too close to call. We don't know yet.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. All right, let's now head to the state of Georgia, which has, to say the least, has been quite interesting recently. Let's start off with John Ossoff's race, which is, we are predicting a David Perdue victory, but just barely. This race has become competitive. Looking at the polling data itself, we see, some polls with Perdue up, some polls with Ossoff up. Ossoff is, I don't think he has held political experience before, but he did run for House and he did lose. But looking at these numbers right now, it is really, really, really close between Ossoff and David Perdue. I think actually a lot of these have Ossoff up, but from what we know about Georgia and considering turnout and everything like that, it's gonna be very close. It's gonna be less than a percentage point. but I think that David Perdue will slightly edge out the victory because, again, we also have to take in a little bit of the polling bias here because polls do tend to swing to the left. Now, Raphael Warnock versus Kelly Loeffler versus Doug Collins versus Matt Lieberman. This one is definitely going to be interesting because in Georgia, they don't have primaries, or at least the special election does not have a primary there. What's going to happen is it's all the candidates are going to be on the ballot at once. Everyone's going to vote. And if a candidate can get over 50% outright in the first round, they become senator. However, if no candidate gets over 50%, then what happens is there's going to be a second round where all the people vote again between only the top two candidates there. So what do we think will happen? At first, we actually had this one as likely before. That has since shifted a lot because we started thinking and looking at the polls, the new polls that were coming out that were crazy. We did not expect these numbers. We have Warnock up 11, Warnock up 15, Warnock up 12, Warnock up 19, 18, 6, 7, 12, 8. He's 20. A-plus pollsters have a 20, 19. It's pretty crazy to say the least. But I do think that Warnock will definitely advance to the next round. That I'm expecting. His opponents, I'm a little bit less sure on. Doug Collins is a really good candidate. He served in the House of Representatives. He's a staunch Trump ally. Kelly Loeffler does have an insider trading scandal, but it doesn't. Well, yeah, it does. But it's going to be interesting to see who advances to the runoff because what I think the Republican Party blundered here was not having a primary. They're running two solid candidates against one solid Democrat. I know Matt Lieberman is running, but doesn't seem to be. He's not really getting that much coverage or anything like that. So I do think this. I think Warnock will advance to the second round, and I think that one of the other two Republican candidates, solid Republican candidates, will advance to the next round as well. From there, I do think that it's going to be a slight edge for the Republican candidate, but I can't call that yet for sure. We're going to have to wait on the prediction for that one first. We'll wait to see what happens on election night first. But for now, we are going to have to keep this one as a toss-up because we really don't know what exactly is going to happen in this race. But for now, this is our final Senate map, 51-48, plus the one toss-up in Georgia special. So this would give the Democrats an outright majority in the Senate. And this is our final prediction. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. If you like our content, please hit subscribe. We'll see you in our next episode this afternoon.
See ya.